And then once we were very clear on this, then we go, okay, so let's create a business that supports that life. And that's when we start working. So the filter is what you want your life to look like, and then how we create a business that supports it. And that was like an epiphany for me. And when I started looking from that lens, I started creating my own business in a different way and helping others create a business in a different way. That now they can go and actually live the life and actually go on vacation, actually hang out with the wife and the kids, you know?
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I've spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. I've got Polish Peter with us today. And Peter, no one knows Peter better than Peter. So Peter, I need the backstory. Bring us up to speed and we'll get into the conversation.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I like that little intro. No one knows Peter better than Peter. Let's hope so. Let's hope that is the case. So listen, quick backstory on me. I was born in Poland. That was back in when Poland was communist country. I grew up for the first 14 years there. And when I was 8 years old, my parents got divorced. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, because there was a purpose to that. And at that time, when my parents got divorced, the United States was a land of opportunity. So, and I think still is today, to this day, it's a land of opportunity. And so my mom came here to the United States, and I went to live with my aunt and my uncle for about 6 years. When I was 14, she came back to Poland for a vacation. And 2 weeks before she was coming back here, she sat me and my sister down. She goes, guess what, kids? And I'm like, what? You're going to the United States with me. So didn't have much choice. Ended up on a plane, landed here in the United States, and no English, just suitcase in my hand, and learned the English language. I think I'm still learning. I don't think I can ever learn this language because, wait a minute, my Polish or my Polish, right? But I learned the language, went to high school, graduated, went to college, got a degree in architecture. While there, I met my wife. We got married, got 3 kids. 2008 hit, if you remember those fun times. So I was an architect at that time in Michigan, and what ended up happening, the industry dried up. So I started my own company on the side. It was like a marketing and website development company. I started growing that during that particular time as I got so focused. I was growing it the wrong way, by the way, and which actually matters in this particular context as well. And when I was at the end of 2010, my wife came to me. She said she wants a divorce. Frankly, it was a shock to me, but in retrospect, there was a reason because, I wasn't there. I wasn't present. I wasn't the husband that I needed to be. I was just so into business. So I went to what I call my optimistic depression over the next couple of years. And during that particular time, I had what I call an awakening kind of for myself, because I learned a lot about myself, who I am, why am I the way I am, and all kinds of different things, because I had this unanswered question that I kept asking myself, what the hell is wrong with me? Wrong answer to ask, because you're not going to get some good answers from that question. But I learned a lot about myself. And today, because of that, I call myself a human architect, because I love having coaching conversations with people, transforming their lives, shifting them back to who they're meant to be on this world. Because I think we are, over the years, the world tells us how we need to be, and then we start acting from that mask with everything in life. So this is what I do right now in today's world. I wrote a book recently, and I am basically helping people live the best life that they can live, both in business and life. So that's a little story on me. And if you have any questions, let's bring it, man.
I love it. I love it. So first, I got to go back. Where did you first land when it came to the States? Where were you living?
So I got a quick little story. So as I'm on the plane, they played 2 movies. This is 91. Any guesses what those 2 movies were that they played for me?
Coming to America.
That was Murphy. One of them. Yep, with Eddie Murphy.
That's a total guess.
What's that?
That's a total guess.
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't think it was. I think it was on purpose a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Second was an Eddie Murphy as well too.
What was it?
Second movie was by Eddie Murphy as well too. It was
Beverly Hills Cop.
exactly.
Nah.
You're good, man. Richard, look
Yeah.
at you, man. And it was the one where he was in LA, you know what I mean, in Hollywood.
The
So I'm
first one.
looking, what's that?
Was it the first one?
Well, I think it was in both of them. I think it was the second one actually they played.
Okay.
But I'm looking at this movie and I'm like, you know what? This United States may not be so bad. I mean, you got beautiful skyscrapers, you got palm trees. I love palm trees, beautiful skies. 14-year-old boy, you got beautiful women, all that kind of stuff, right? And then guess where I land? In Detroit.
Chicago. Detroit. Oh,
Close enough. So I've been living in Michigan ever since then here. So,
well, I say Chicago. I'm from Chicago. We have a large Polish constituency.
oh yeah, I know.
More than
I got some
Warsaw.
family over there.
There's more in Chicago than Warsaw. So yeah, it's I'm quite familiar. Okay.
Good. Yeah. Probably
It's
got
good.
some Polish food at some point.
That's right. The food. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's good. Anyways, well, awesome. So I just wanted to, I want to clarify that. We got to start there. So you kind of told you how you got into the coaching, but at the same time, you're a legit architect. You talk '08, things kind of collapsed. I was there, lost everything, so business, home, all that cool stuff. I had 6 kids at the time, my wife, same thing. So you reinvented yourself. You said you went through about a 2-year process till you figured it out.
Yeah, that was after my divorce.
Yeah.
About 2 years. Yep.
Was that '08 also, the divorce?
What's that?
Was that in '08 also, the divorce?
No, divorce was in 2011. So
Okay.
like the 2008 didn't really affect me that much because I had the business on the side and I was growing it. What hit me is the divorce, you know what I mean? Because then I'm like started questioning myself like crazy, So
Right. Yeah, that's a hard thing to go through. So far, I'm 26 years, still married. So
congratulations, man. That's
that
awesome.
going. It's good.
Where you
It's
go?
good. All my kids are grown, so it's all good. But what made you want to do? I know you did your own self exploration here, right? And you kind of started figuring things out. What kind of led you to actually kind of get into the helping others kind of deal? Was it you helped someone? Like I just helped a business guy because someone asked me how I like built this 20-year business, lost it all, then built new things again. Like, how do you do that? I said, well, what are you doing? And I started helping him. And then I helped the next guy and the next guy and started seeing the same patterns. So I started helping everybody, wrote some books and, the rest is history, right? What was your what was your trajectory there?
Yeah, so in full disclosure, I mean, that was not on my horizon at all to be a coach. At that time, I was in a mastermind in a company called Life on Air. So imagine like there is like 20, 25 people who are sitting around the table, and every single person has got their hot seat, And when they have the hot seat, they talk about what's going on with their life, their business. Like there is like no judgment in the room. So you literally pour your heart out, As I'm talking about everything that's going on in my life and my business or not going on in my life, I start sharing different things and people are, helping me out with that. And then when that turn changes, I start getting very curious about other people. And I start asking these certain types of questions. And I start, being a certain way. And the more I kept doing it over and over again, people in the room were like, you should be a coach because the way you are approaching the situation, the way you ask questions and, you are able to see beyond the surface, right? And for whatever reason, God gave me this gift that I can see what's underneath the surface stuff. And so people kept telling me, you should be a coach, you should be a coach. And I'm like, all right, well, let's try that. And that's how I started, getting in the coaching industry.
Yeah, it's great. I've watched the evolution of coaching, just from when I was in business, my first business, so you're talking, well, you were 91 coming here. So I was 90, 89, 88 coming out of the Marine Corps. And I started the business and there were no coaches. Okay. Yeah. You were sports coaches and that was it. So you weren't there was no internet. Okay. So we didn't have access to all this stuff. And when I see it today, and I've been doing it over 10 years myself, it's fascinating in a lot of good ways. And there's some always downsides to everything, but I think the accessibility to coaching for anything it's never been like this before, right? There's a lot of that. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of coaching. I think it compresses time with whatever you're doing. If you can get that person who can really help you. But I want to dive into kind of when you look specifically what you're coaching. Okay. I want to kind of get into your niche. Let's talk about it. What you do, what's the outcomes you're bringing for people, right? Because everyone's coming to a coach for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Some want to play their basketball game better. Some people want to make their business better. Some people want to make their life better. Some people want to just make their marriage better, whatever that looks like. So kind of what was that niche you kind of found yourself finally in and really grooving in?
So I will tell you this, when I first got into the coaching, the people that I was attracting to my coaching were people in relationships. So it was more of a life side. And like people who are couples who are struggling, heading for divorce. And I'm like, why are they coming in? Well, I was divorced, but I figured out what the reason for that was. Today, I'm happily married. I have an amazing wife. I've, remarried since then. So what ended up, that's when it started. And the more I started coaching and evolved into the business, people coming in asking me about the business. How do I grow the business? How do I make the business better? How do I make more money and all that kind of stuff, right? And especially, and it happens a lot, I think, when people ask that, but I think it's a wrong question to ask. Because if you think about it, why do you go into the business? I think ultimately most of us, we go into the business to have that freedom, right? To have that freedom to do what we want, where we want, with who we want, however we want, kind of a thing, right?
Right.
And then we get into this business, and then business basically puts these little handcuffs on us. And now we're working 60, 80, 90, 100 hours a week supporting the business as opposed to the business supporting our life. So what I do in my process, and I learned this from beginning with the vision process from Think and Grow Rich, and then it got more, elaborated and kind of clarified through this company Life on Air, is that let's write your vision for your life first. Get very clear on what you want your vision to look like. Because when I came in here, nobody ever told me that. I know it wasn't Think and Grow Rich and all that kind of stuff, but it never really hit me, right? And so write your vision for your life first. Then tell me, like, how much is that going to cost you to live that vision? Then tell me how many hours a week would you want to work in order to live that vision? In fact, let's scratch that. How many hours a week would you be taking up to live that vision? All those vision activities. Because then when you put it in the calendar, what you end up with leftover time, and that's going to tell you how many hours at the end of the week you're going to be to working in your business. So most people end up with about 20, 25 hours. And then once we are very clear on this, then we go, okay, so let's create a business that supports that life. And that's when we start working. So the filter is what you want your life to look like, and then how we create a business that supports it. And that was like an epiphany for me. And when I started looking from that lens, I started creating my own business in a different way and helping others create a business in a different way. That now they can go and actually live the life and actually go on vacation, actually hang out with the wife and the kids,
Yeah, that's awesome. I did something similar. Mine's a little bit more simplified, I should say. So I'm going to get in the next business, and I'm like, okay, we're homeschooling our kids and all that. I got 6 kids, right? I want to homeschool them and all the stuff. They're at that ages.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so my goal for my business is that if my wife calls me and needs me, I can be there in 15 minutes.
Right.
What time of day it is, no matter what's going on, I can do that. That's how I started my whole thing on my next business, right? I'm like, so whatever I have to do to make that happen, so who do I have to be in the business? I open a gym. We do boot camp style training. Yeah, I'm a great trainer, but I also hired trainers. I can't be doing 7 classes a day, whatever. So I got all that. I'm doing this, and it really worked out. Now, my wife seldom ever called me.
Yeah. That's a whole different conversation, right?
That's right. But I could always just pop home too when I wanted to. I pop, which was really great, right? So I had that different connection with my kids. But that was part of when other people started to ask me. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Because you're right. I always tell people a business, it can become a mistress.
Yeah.
It's going to call you. It wants you to be with you all the time. You're going to think about it at night. You're going to think about it in the morning, right? You're going to want to go be with it. Right. And that's what happened to me the first 20 years. I just worked all the time. I just loved it. I love what I did, but it wasn't good for anything else. Right. So we really had to re-engineer all that. So I'm glad you kind of discovered that and had that process for people, because you're right. Now we get to choose that 60 or 80 hours. We get to do that. That's our choice. It's not like we have to show up, but we want to. Isn't that exciting? But wouldn't it be better, like you said, reverse engineer that from your vision and find out, okay, I need to work only 25 hours a week in order to fulfill my vision.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation. when you're building a business,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it doesn't mean you get to start that way, right? But
No, it
that
doesn't.
the
Yeah.
goal is to get there because that first 2 years is brutal.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, if you already have a business, because a lot of my people that come into my coaching, they already have businesses.
Right.
But a lot of times the business is it's like a little monster they've built, right?
That's
And
right.
they got to feed that monster over and over and over again because if you don't feed it, it gets very hungry and then it's not very happy, you know? So when you start looking to unravel this, you got to do a little bit at a time. You know, you go from, let's say, 60 to 40 or whatever the hours, and then you start,
Right.
obviously delegation, hiring, all that kind of stuff.
Do you find the mindset shift for them is difficult,
Oh, yeah, a
especially
lot
in
of
the
times it is,
beginning?
yeah. Because
Right.
it's not so much mindset, it's the belief system that runs the whole show. You know what I mean? That belief system is so ingrained into
Right.
us, that it makes it. That's why we end up building a business that way. I'll give you an example. Like growing up, I used to sit in a workshop with my uncle when I was living with them. Right? He built his entire house by himself. He built all the furniture by himself. And by the way, when he was building the furniture, everything had to match up perfectly, right? Because when you are gluing stuff together, when you're putting these connections together, they have to be chiseled perfectly, right? Because otherwise things are not going to close very well and all that kind of stuff. What did I learn from that? What I learned from that you have to do things yourself because nobody's going to do it as well as you do. And guess what? If that wasn't bad enough, it's got to be perfect. And then I became an architect. And guess what happens when you do that? You got to be perfect, right? Because when you draw these drawings, you got to be on, the numbers have to be exact, right? So now when you start growing the business, how does that work? It doesn't work so well. So that belief system for me, I had to let go, reframe a lot of that in order. And I think that happens a lot for entrepreneurs, business owners, because they bring the belief system to the business.
I
And
think
they
one
feel
of the
like,
best things I learned was imperfect action.
yeah,
Imperfect action wins the day. And I really grabbed a hold of that. I'm like, I'm a doer, right? I'm an activator, man. I do stuff. So also for me, that sense of accomplishment is what drove me.
mm-hmm,
Big thing, the next great thing I kept doing, but I had to be making, building. I had to see something. I
yeah,
wasn't your intellectual guy.
yep,
Okay.
I can
I'm
see
like,
that.
I'm building, I'm making things, I'm doing sculptures, I'm making wonderful. Like that gave me a sense of purpose and accomplishment and a measurement. It was my measuring stick. What I get done, what I accomplish. The next thing is bigger, the next thing is better. I just kept chasing that. So I finally realized, like, oh, wait a minute, like this is all I'm doing.
Mm-hmm,
It's the next big thing. There was
yeah,
no plan. It was just, it's got to be greater than the last thing.
yeah. And if you think
That's a
about it,
high bar.
yeah, it is. You know what I mean? And at some point, what ends up happening with a lot of entrepreneurs like that, because there's a lot of that, you get burned out. You know,
Yeah.
you burn out and you crash a lot of times. And it comes from the belief system. That originated somewhere. So kudos for you to be able to see that for yourself and then, shift something in here that doesn't have to like you have to do it all. You know what I mean? And you changed it to
Well,
imperfect action.
yeah, I'll tell you, Peter, here's how it happened. Just so you probably had this experience or talked to people with this. Like I had that epiphany in '09, right? I woke up, everything's collapsing around me, losing the
Mm-hmm.
business, home's gonna be gone, all this stuff, still trying to save the business. I I started thinking about my 6 kids, and they were all like 4 and under at the time, right? So I got six little
Wow.
kids. And I'm going, all they care about is when I walk in the door, they kind of crawl, run to me, whatever, when I leave, they cry. One day, my 4-year-old was chasing my truck out of the driveway crying as I'm pulling away. And
Oh,
I'm just looking at him in the rearview mirror, like, I got to go. I got to work. I got
oh,
to
that's
save this
rough.
business. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was kind of hard. So I'm laying in bed this one morning. And I'm just like, you know what? They don't care what kind of truck I drive or how many trucks I have. They don't care what kind of house you live in. They don't care what I do for a living. They don't care if I'm an internationally recognized steel sculptor, if I'm the ultimate what they could give a
Mm-hmm.
crap.
Yeah.
Okay. All they wanted was me to be around.
Yep.
And it wasn't. Right. So I'm like, man, if I stay on this course, I'm going to ruin their futures. They're going to
Yeah.
have broken marriages, failed relationships, right? They may do business or whatever, but man, they're only more is caught than taught with kids. So I'm always like, they're only going to do what they see.
Yeah.
That was the big epiphany. Like I God given this window for the future. I got out of bed, Peter, walked in the office that we're done today. shutting the door, was finished, went to my yard, my construction yard, told my guys, had our last cup of coffee together. I said, man, dude, we got to wrap this up. Well, what are you going to do? I go, I have no idea.
Yeah.
My business became who I was. My
Yep.
identity was that. So first thing I did was have a bonfire in the backyard, and I burned all my uniforms, everything brand new. I burned it all. I said, I'm never going to be owned by my business again. It's
Talk about a
never
little
going to own
ritual.
me. Yeah, and I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I got equipment. I just selling everything. We're moving. We had to move. This house did all the stuff, and then I just, again, my only thing was not just the 15 minutes, but like, it's never going to be who I am. My
Yeah.
business is going to be a business. It's an income generator, right? It's
Yeah.
going to serve others. It's going to do all that, but it's not going to be who I am. So for
Yeah.
me, that was the big epiphany that really kind of changed everything for my life, and it came at a great time.
Yeah. I appreciate you
Easy
sharing that
excuse
with
for the
me, man.
economy, right? But it wasn't. It was just
Yeah.
that
I
was
appreciate sharing that because sounds to me sometimes we do have those moments, you know what I mean? And I think those are the defining moments that shape or what, because it's not about what happens to us, it's how we react to it. And I
yeah,
think your reaction basically shows what kind of a man you are to be able to go and look at like, seeing your kids in the rearview mirror, it's running and crying. Man, that's rough. I mean, I got three kids. And I have similar kind of moments, in the past. Like when I came into because I got myself coached at one point, and he goes, to me, what do you like doing for fun? And I'm like, I don't know, work on my business.
yeah.
No, 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 not the business. What do you like doing for fun?
My business.
I don't know. I mean, I used to ski when I was little, I used to play soccer, but that's about what about now? What are you doing? Work on my business. Okay, so forget your business. What if you don't do anything on your business? What do you like to do? Helping other people with business. And he's like, and then that was me. That's what,
Right.
that was my
Been
identity.
there.
And that basically I had to that awakening time basically brought me back to who I am as I'm a father, I'm a man, those kinds of things that because nobody can take that away from me. And that's when the journey whole started.
Yeah, it's important. I'm still not too good at having fun, Peter. I
Yeah.
don't.
Well,
My
you're doing
kids
pretty
are
good
little.
right now on the podcast.
Yeah, this is fun. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it's still business. But my kids would have my phone. They grab my phone. Once in a while, like, Daddy, you don't have any games on your phone. I go, because Daddy don't play games.
Yeah.
That was my answer. I'm like, I don't have any games. I don't play games. I don't play games. I don't do that stuff. I'm like busy doing other stuff. So I get that. I mean, we have fun. I like to shoot a little bit. Fortunately, I can do that off my back porch, so I don't have to go anywhere. So I got my own range out back, so that's kind of fun. That's about the extent of my fun, though. And I work out and I do all that stuff. So I get my things that to
Yeah.
me that's my release. But I get the fun part.
Yeah.
That people ask me, "Oh, what's on your bucket list?" I go, "Bucket list? What do you think I'm going to die?" I go, "I'm not. I don't think about the end. I'm not trying to finish. I'm doing the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to check something that I haven't. I don't. I don't have that mindset. You know what I mean? I don't mind that people have it. It doesn't bother me. But like, dude, right now, Peter, I'm doing the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. Whole new thing I'm doing is the biggest thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm like, I guess that's my bucket list.
Yeah.
I'm not running around trying to see this, and that, and whatever. So I get it. Do you find? Here's a question after all my rambling. Do you find that people need those kind of things? Do they need the fun bucket? Do they need I want to go here. I'm going to take a vacation. Do they have to lay that stuff out? Does that give them, when you're dealing with business people now,
Yeah.
does that give them some sense of solace? I mean, are they kind of like, yeah, that's what I was missing? Or is it more, hey, directing to your family and doing that kind of stuff? What does it kind of look like? What are you seeing after these years of doing all this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it depends on the person. I mean, some people it's a fun, some people it's a family, some people it's whatever it might be. But here's the thing. If you find yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, feeling like there's something missing, like deep down inside, there's something is off, there's something missing, you know, and you start to look for what's missing. What happens a lot of times, people look for the outside to figure out what the missing part is. And now they look in the business, they look in that, and then they, get this, hit the mountain, get on top of the mountain, and they're like, that was it. And then they search for another thing, another missing thing. And when you start to really dive deeper, you start to find out that what really, you know, lives up people, what really gets them going is the relationship with the people that are closest to them. It's the thing that they're afraid to let the world know about what really they want to do. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. For some people, yeah, it is going, having fun, vacations or whatever. Some people, it's just connecting and hanging out with their wife, with the kids and playing with the kids on the living room floor. You know what I mean? But, or going and working on their health. Like I go through all the different areas of their life to figure out what gets them going. For some people, it's spirituality, right? Being connected with the God and having that kind of a strong relationship. So whatever it is for you, but what ends up happening when people are so into this one area, into the business or whatever it might be, but a lot of times it's business owners go into business, it becomes this silo and everything else is basically like invisible. You know what I mean? Where focus goes, energy flows kind of thing, as Tony says.
Yeah, it becomes an afterthought.
Yeah.
Everything else is an afterthought.
Right.
I mean, it's just, and man, and since I went through it, I know, because it gives you purpose, it gives you direction, gives you identity. I'm telling you, the identity thing is what happens to most people. It
Yep.
becomes who they are
Yeah.
because they can give everything. And then they
Right.
can say, I built it. Now, I had an ego bigger than the room I'm in. Okay. Like I'm talking ego. It was all about the next thing, all about I'm the best at this. I'm in this magazine. I'm on this TV.
Oh yeah.
I'm all this, right? All the accolades. And then that's what drove me. And when you take that away, it's like, well, who am I? And you're right.
Exactly.
Mine was who I am. Mine was, I had to discover who I was in Christ. So mine was that spiritual component. That's what fulfills me. So it doesn't matter what I do now.
Yeah. And I love that you found that, because here's the thing, a lot of people struggle in finding that, because
yes, they do.
what we do a lot of times, we give identity to something to the outside. Like I'm an architect, right? 2008, when I quit, and by the way, I quit. You know what I mean? I did this similar thing what you did. I remember the boss that I had, he came in and he was about to lay me off. I'm like, let me stop you right there. I'm just gonna quit. You know what I mean? And so I did, but the identity with the architecture, when that went away, I was like kind of lost,
Right.
So if you give something to the outside, that can be easily taken away. And it's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I wrote, because I want people to get back to their authenticity, get back to that truth, who you are in Christ, who you are yourself as a man, as a woman, whatever it might be. Because guess what? That in here, nobody can take that away from you.
That's right.
And then you can walk boldly anywhere in life, And and it's a really powerful reframe that helps people, just whether they're 20 or 30 or 80, live life.
Yeah. I'll share a story with I do with my son. He was a real good runner, right? 800 mile, all that stuff. And
wow.
And he had lost this. I think he was maybe 16 at the time. Yeah, I think he was 16, but he had the big race against the number one guy. There's this mile cross country thing, and they're coming down the straightaway. I mean, throwing elbows. I mean, it's a battle, right? It's a battle for the finish, and he loses by a fraction, right? And he goes into this like depression. He's just doesn't come out of his room. A couple of days, we finally go in there, my wife and I said, "What's your deal?" Mm-hmm. You don't understand. I'm the best runner on the team. Everyone expects me to win. I got a lot of pressure. I'm this runner. I'm this. And I go, hold on. And I'll just share what I told him. I go, dude, I can give you a stack of books from the floor to the ceiling on great athletes who was over in a snap of a leg, snap of a neck, whatever, right? Me, my boxing career done in 10 seconds in a fight. Head crushed, the whole thing over 10 seconds. And I was the favorite. Okay. I was the guy going to win, right? I said, it doesn't matter. This can go away in a heartbeat, man. Your identity, and I told him, because that this is our beliefs. I'm like, your identity is in Christ. Never leave you, never forsake you. That's who you are. You're gifted. You're a gifted runner. You're a gifted artist. You're sharp. You can write. You can do all. You got a lot of gifts. I said, but those are use them while you got them.
Yeah.
God's never going to take them away, but until your identity's in that, and that changed him, Peter.
Oh
he came out of that thing. Everything else. Now here's the best part. Couple years later, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years later, he's telling me a story about a kid at school. Okay, again, he homeschooled, but he runs on the high school team, who was a great wrestler, but he wanted to run. So he's running, and then he's torn. Well, I'm a great wrestler. Everyone knows me as a wrestler. He gave him the same speech. My son did. I just went,
wow, that's very
cool.
Told
him that? And he goes, yeah, I told him, and it really helped. I go, dang, now there's a proud dad moment.
Yeah.
Okay, that was super cool. I'm like, holy cow, sometimes kids listen. So
That's
look
right.
out.
Kids do listen. Yeah.
But so yeah, I think a lot of us struggle with that identity aspect, and the business can fill that in a shallow sense because
Yes.
there's a lot of tangibles, a lot of things you can touch. You
Yeah.
can see, you can build a building, you can have trucks, you can service this, you can have a product with your name on it, your picture on it. I have books with my picture on it. Well, like, oh, that's so cool. All that stuff can fill those gaps, but they never truly like complete that.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's important how you're doing it. You got to walk them through processes, right? What
Yeah.
is it? What are you looking for? What else do you do? To me, it always has to be what energizes me.
Hmm.
That's one of those things when I ask people like, well, what energizes you? Okay. Like accounting doesn't energize me. Okay.
Yeah.
no,
I
no,
hear you,
just
man. Same here. Yeah.
right. So, but what really gets me cranky, like when I'm helping people with their business, when I get them free from their business, kind of like you do,
Yeah.
like I had one a client's wife text me and said, Richard, I never thought this would happen. 8 years in business. We just spent 2 weeks on the beach with all five of our kids, and he was never on the phone.
Yeah.
That's worth everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like I saved a family,
Yeah.
right? 8 years when he started, what a mess. Okay, just doing two. But it's that's to me, those are the rewards I look for when I can create that I mean, you're saving families,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, that's a powerful story, man, because yeah, that changes how you go about life and, who you pour into and how you approach everything. So yeah, thanks for sharing, man. Yeah, I have similar stories like that. And it's a really empowering tool because think about it this way, it's just one person at a time. When you change that, they change like in your story, Ruth. You had a conversation with your son,
yeah,
transform him. Now it's a ripple effect with his, friend, and then maybe his friend ripples somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. So, and that goes both ways. We have to be very intentional of how we talk, what we say, especially to our kids, and be able to go because those will create the ripple effect. So, granted, you can't um, what's the word I'm looking for? You cannot prevent what meaning they're going to make it about what you said. I mean, you can kind of ask questions, but you have to be intentional how you go about impacting other people's lives.
well, I think that's the importance of walking that talk.
Yeah.
Because again, they're going to see you. It doesn't matter what you say. People only see what you do, and you have to judge people by their actions and not by their what they say. Like that's the reality. Like, what's the outcome? What do you told me this, but you did this? I believe they call that hypocrisy. But still, you know what I mean? And we all have to learn to walk that way, right? We all have
Yeah.
to do what we say. And as a coach, same thing. You're giving this advice. Are you doing it? I mean, like here's an advantage of you having, knowing what you didn't want to get divorced, but you did, and that's a negative experience, obviously, right? But then you've learned from that mistake.
Mm.
You learn what you did wrong in that situation, and now you're happily married, and this whole thing. Now you can give that, just like me. I have a book of failures.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I can write about the failures. We can guide others away from those failures. We can see that coming early. We have that sense of discernment, right? We understand where that's coming from, and you can help them. That's when you come alongside someone, right? You're like, oh man, I was going this way too. Let me help you out because
Yeah.
you know where this is going. Let me tell you because I've been there.
Yep.
And if you can redirect people, do you find that a lot? Are you using those kind of experiences in your coaching?
Yeah,
Really
because
help?
yeah, I mean, you'll be surprised how many times in the conversations, and by the way, I mean all the different conversation with what I have in my students, and I call them like my family members because I get to know them so well. Like I know more about them than sometimes their families, wives, husbands.
Sure.
And there's so many. Think about it this way. We human beings, we have different circumstances that happen in our life, different experiences. But deep down on the core level, we're not that different. We're pretty much
Right.
the same. What I mean? We're fearful, in some like we want to be enough. A lot of times I've noticed like people, entrepreneurs, for instance, the fear that drives a lot of them is like, am I good enough? Am I good enough at this? And I'm going to keep going, driving until I prove to myself that I'm good enough. And by the way, here is the thing about that it's a moving goalpost. You'll never get there because the goalpost keeps moving. And then, am I loved? And am I good enough? And all that kind of conversation. So that is permeated through every single human being. So when you start to finally get that, and I finally got that at some point, that good enough. You know what I mean? And everything is like happening for me kind of a thing. All of a sudden it changes how I go about life. And I try all the time to having conversation with people to be able to shift their way of living to, you know what? You're good enough. You know what I mean? And things that are happening for you, because that's going to reframe my whole conversation about my divorce and about everything that happened in my life in the past.
Well, it's contentment, right? It really is
Yes.
about contentment. I think you have to, there's nothing wrong with ambition. Here's where a lot of business owners get it mixed up, I think, Peter. Ambition, I have some friends who nailed this description the best. They say ambition is a great passenger. It's horrible in the driver's seat. If you
Yeah.
let ambition get in the driver's seat, you're going to have problems. But it's a great passenger. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to hold on to the wheel. You got to direct this thing, right? So it's important that we have that. That's something God's given us, that ambition, that willingness to achieve. But there has to be a level of contentment. I do this with exit strategy with people. When they're at the beginning of the business or end, I'm like, go to the end. How long, how much? Answer those two questions. How
Mm-hmm.
long you want to do this? How much do you want when you get out? I said, if you can decide that, we can extrapolate backwards and
Right.
figure out the path.
Figure it out.
Now,
Yeah.
now you have a different sense of a contentment, right? You're
Yeah.
not trying to do $100 million business when realistically 10 would be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that would give you what you want in a certain time frame, et cetera, et cetera. Now, nothing wrong with 100 million or 10 billion. I don't care, but like it's got to fit you, But that level of contentment has to be very, very different.
Well, there is one caveat to that I will say, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs believe that being content is being lazy. And I think that is a lie that a lot of people experience, and that's a lie. Just because you're content doesn't mean that you're lazy. You know what I mean? It's a completely two different worlds. And when you get that, all of a sudden you can, because what ends up happening, Timo, you created like you just mentioned, let's, got 10 million, let's work our way backwards, right? So now you have a plan. Now that you have a plan, like think about like a GPS. When you put your GPS in the car, when you want to go from Michigan and, let's say LA, you put it in the destination. That thing knows where you're at first. You hit start, and what does it do? It only tells you about 500 feet in front of you. That's it. It tells you it's going to take you, let's say, 20 some, I don't know how long, maybe 30 some hours to get there. But you're not really worried about that, right? You're just worrying about the first 500 feet. And that 500 feet gets in front of you. And then when there's an accident on the road, guess what this thing does? Reroutes you. So that's contentment to me, kind of a thing, because you can go along that path a lot more with some peace and, get peace. And if you just
right?
have that, all of a
But
sudden you start acting different. You start making things happen.
yeah, people want peace. I mean, internally, they want that
Yeah.
internally. And I think you're exactly right. And you're exactly right about the misconception of contentment is lazy.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not. I had a guy, and one of my questions was like, okay, if you could choose the number, the monthly, like whatever number you want, what do you want to live the life of your dreams? Like pick a number.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, 10,000 a month. And I went, 10,000 a month. That's it.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. I go, like any number, like life of your dreams, man. Life of your dreams. Peter, he stuck with that 10 grand no matter what I said. That was his number. You know what? Excellent. I tried to beat it out of him.
Yeah.
You got to have more. Do you understand? That's not really a lot of money. I'm doing the whole thing, right? He's like, that's all I need. There's a guy, and he owned a restaurant and this other business, whatever. And he's like, so he's not a lazy guy. Okay. He's got very difficult businesses, but he has a number, and that's contentment for him. So I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't knock him for it. He wasn't wrong. I believe me, I went through the steps. I did the math, all that kind of stuff, and he understood it. But that man understood his contentment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So good for him.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Great
a
dude.
good
So so
epiphany.
like you said, everyone's making their own judgments on what they would do, what they think it is, and everything. And I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
When we're helping people, but if you're able to walk them through the process and they still come up with their thing, that's their thing. It's all
Exactly.
good. You're just jealous because they know theirs and you don't know yours. That's all. You think you need that much more, but
Right.
we don't need as much as you think. And when you lose everything, you figure that out.
Exactly. Yep.
Everything goes away. You figure out what you actually need. A lot of wants out there, but needs are way different, and it gives you a whole different perspective.
That's true. Yeah. And especially like if you lose everything, it is painful sometimes, but it's a clean slate. Clean slate. Look, you can do whatever you want now, kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, very true. So with this, as people, you're working with them in their business, okay, and you're getting them kind of dialed in, and we've shared stories back and forth here and stuff too. What's kind of what's the ultimate goal for you? Because here's what I tell people too, as a coach, I go, if I want to make an analogy of sports, when you're 8, you've got a coach in
mhm.
whatever your sport is. When you're 12 and 15, you have a coach. They're not the same coach. And then you get high school, and then you get college, you have different coaches and more coaches. Then you get the pros, and you got all kinds of coaches. So coaches change. You're going to be handed off to the next level coach, right? In business coaching, this is what I've discovered. I tell them, I'm not your forever coach. Okay, I'm going to get you to a place, and you're going to need other coaches. You're
Yeah.
going to need a tax strategist, not an accountant. You're making a lot of money. You need a tax strategist. You need someone who can help you keep more, right? Different coach. I'll help you with this, and they do this. So we bring in these different coaches. So in your kind of philosophy and what you're doing, are you setting your people up to go next level? Like, what do you do? And I'm not saying you're trying to retain them as a client for life. You know what I mean? But do they understand, like, listen, you got to grow as coaches, we grow, right? But if
Hmm.
you want to get in the next smarter room, we don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. We want to go in that. Is that
Right.
kind of your philosophy as you take your people through your programs?
Yeah, in a way, it's this, like remember I said to you at the beginning that we create the vision, right?
Right.
And when we create that life vision, they're not living it. So my goal is to get them to live that vision, you know? And it's interestingly when they go and live that vision, now they go and create a version number two, and so forth and so forth. So my only goal is to help you live that vision, whatever that vision is. So that's basically how I approach everything. And guess what? If you are a business owner, that business has to be set up and has to be making money in order to live that life. Unless your vision says, I want to live in a van down by the river. So if that's the case, then guess what? We don't need much, right? We can just get you a
Right.
van and you can live in a van down by the river, but most of the
Right.
people are not looking
Right.
for that. So
Yeah, everyone's got their thing, right? But yeah,
yeah.
it's important that, and I'm glad you structure it that way because that gives people purpose. Because a lot
Yeah.
of people get in business. I mean, a lot. These are the patterns I recognize. This is why I call it the owner prison, right? Escaping the owner prison. Because when you're in that, and that was the pattern, everybody's doing the same wrong things.
Hmm.
Okay, so it became easy to be a coach because I tell them jokingly, "You're doing all the right wrong things." It's easy for me to fix. I've seen this
Yeah.
all the time. So I want to fix them, but they kind of get stuck in that rut and they never get to the vision. I always say they work very hard the first 2 years, wearing all the hats, doing all that. But then 10 years goes by and they've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. That's the owner
Right.
prison, right? That's that hamster wheel. So without that vision, you don't have purpose anymore, except making payroll, making more money than you guys who have a job, and that kind of thing. And you kind of get in that weird cycle, like you own things and you're in charge of your time, kind of, and all that. But it's a weird mix without vision. We the
People perish.
people perish, to use
Yeah.
the biblical term. Yes.
Yeah.
Habakkuk 2:2, right?
Right.
Write it down plainly on tablets so those who read it
Yeah.
can pick it up and run. We want to do that.
There's
But it's
some
important.
there's some wisdom in that book, right?
There's a
A
little bit. Yeah, I
little bit,
make sure
yeah.
I'm in it every day, so I get a
Yeah.
lot.
I
Okay.
will tell you this, when I first got into the Bible, I mean, I was raised Catholic, right? But I never actually read the Bible. And the first time I went to the Bible, I went to learn about how to grow my business. And I went into Proverbs because they said, you know what? The big part of that Proverbs book was written by the richest man ever, Solomon. His name was Solomon. He's
And
the
the
richest man
wisest.
ever and the wisest, right? So I'm like, well, I guess I can learn something for my business. I went to Proverbs. Lo and behold, here I am, and it's a completely different world now. So
Chapter a day.
Yeah.
chapter a day, every month. You could do all the Proverbs and do it again and again and again. You can
Yeah.
read all the Proverbs 12 times. You do it every year. It's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is it's the ultimate business book, I'll tell you.
It is.
And when you go down there, because I tell people I will, because I say, listen, so God's principles, his business, I'll air quote business principles, right? His principles work whether you're a believer or not. Okay. So
That's
like I
true.
can't go wrong sharing these in my coaching program. Like if I'm doing these, I'm like, everybody wins because they work regardless. Okay. So like when they ask where I get these ideas, I go, oh, from here. And
That's
I'm like,
right. Mm.
that does stuff about business. I go, yeah, it does. Yeah, it's pretty good life. That's my life coach. Okay. My life coach is the Bible. So it works, but yeah,
That's
you're
good. It
exactly right.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, and those kind of things early on, I didn't, right? I didn't know that stuff. I'm just building a business and don't know why it failed after 20 years. I didn't have that. I didn't have that centerpiece, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's comforting to know, you know what I mean? And again, it's just like a vision. You got to have something to follow. What are you following? What are you
Right.
doing? What are you basing your business on?
Right.
What principles? What is it? Is it just survival of the
Values.
fittest?
Yeah.
That's not super exciting.
Mm.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's really, really good. I'm glad you discovered that. You
Thank you,
know,
man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
how old were you at that time?
When I discovered that was probably my mid 30s when I finally got that, you know.
That's
So, I
good. I
mean,
think I was told people I was a CINO. You know what a CINO is?
no.
Christian in name only.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So CINO, a CINO, that's Christian in name only. So I go to church and I do all that stuff. I'm a Christian. I didn't know anything about really being a Christian. So I was, man, I don't know, CINO till my 40s. And then I realized, like, well, what does this really mean? And what does being saved
Yeah.
mean and all that stuff? So I kind of took that whole journey in my earlier 40s. And that was good. But see, you got ahead of me. You're ahead of me, ahead of me on the timeline,
Yeah.
which is good. But I did Christian things. I had
Yeah.
integrity. I was honest. I built my business. I did all that kind of stuff, but I didn't understand why. I just was taught that's the good way to do things. So that was good. That's a bonus. But then it really changed once you kind of understand. Then you start diving into the word and it becomes like this is really good.
All right.
Like this is like legit, like, structure. It's how to act, how to do this stuff, makes a huge difference, and it changes who you are. And I think when you're a business owner, again, back to identity, right? Who are you in that? Who are you in that? How do you identify yourself inside that realm, right? And if you don't know, okay, you're going to do whatever you want to do. The Bible says that people are wise in their own eyes.
Yeah.
They did whatever they wanted to do, that kind of thing. We start going down those paths where it doesn't matter anymore. There's no guardrails.
All right.
And when you don't have guardrails in business, bad things happen. You're going to do a lot of things outside those boundaries. And we always say, God's blessings are inside his boundaries,
Yeah.
right? So we want to be inside there walking in that. And when you can drive in that and you understand where the lanes are, you can go places.
Right.
You get there sooner, you get there safer. You know what I mean? The end of the road is a good thing, right? So it's kind of cool. That's good.
Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, man.
When you're working with people, Peter, what's it like? Are they? Because here's my thing. We were talking Christianity, right? We're talking about
Mm.
believers, and we get all that. And people would ask me, "Well, why don't you just coach Christian business owners?" You know, what my response is, "Well, that wouldn't be very Christian."
All right. I get that part. Yeah.
What? What? I got some exclusive club here. Like everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
can I got to go teach those people,
Yeah.
and bring them along here, So it's kind of, do you run into that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't get so much like, why don't you just coach Christians? I mean, I had a coach and he said, well, niche it, right? To just for Christians. I'm like, well, I mean, like the book, when I wrote the book, it's in full disclosure, it's not a Christian book, but there is a lot of Christian principles in there. And my goal is to end up bringing people back to Christ. in that book. Because I'm in my coaching, for instance, I'll give you an idea. Like I have one couple that came into my, they have a business, pretty successful business, help them grow it, help them restructure some things, help them restructure some, identity stuff for themselves and all those different things. And when they came into my group, they were not interested in this whole conversation about Christianity, Christ, or whatever. We didn't even talk about this at all. And long story short, about a month ago, they gave their life to Jesus. They got baptized, and and they're running their business completely different perspective, and their family, and all those kinds of things. So, I think when you are in it, you start to coach in a different perspective, and I think it seeps through. You know what I mean? So I want to help people. At the end of the day, I want to help people. Whether you're Christian, whether you're black, white, green, yellow, I don't care. So
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. It's they have to see in you, okay, again, what you believe.
right.
How do you operate? If they, no one's gonna trust you, no one's gonna respect you, until they know like who you are and how you operate. And it doesn't mean you have to declare all this stuff. It's just how I operate.
Yeah, just show up that way. Yeah.
Yeah, me, it's the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I operate. That's who I am, and I have that, and people will comment on that,
Yeah.
like without any kind of. We're not talking just like, dude, you just have a. Oh, there's like a spirit about you, man. I really like that. I had that. I was interviewing a guy for a job, and he's just like telling me that, like, dude, your spirit. I'm like, well, that's a pretty cool compliment, dude. You just
Yeah.
buttering me up to get the job, or what do you?
Yeah.
I'm playing with it. You know what I mean? No, yeah, well, thanks, man. That means a lot, So I think it's we talked about before, like being who you are, walking the talk. If you're not, and that matters in business.
Yeah, it
When
does.
you want to sell, when you're trying to close an account, when you're dealing with your vendors, all that stuff, who you are, people know. We've all dealt with the guy that we don't ever want to deal with. We know we're going to get shafted. I had a conversation with a client this morning about that. Just
Mm.
what are the indicators when you're getting those big custom homes? Like, when can you say no? When is the determination like, no, I don't want to build your $3 million house,
Right.
because of who you are, and this experience is going to be horrible for everybody. Like we were like tracking things like, where does this happen? What are the indicators when someone says, because a lot of times we have to learn as business owners, we have to learn to say no,
Yep.
right? We have to
That is
say
a
no
big
to
one.
customers. And I will tell you, as a business owner, some of my greatest moments were sending back a big deposit check to someone because they altered the contract and everything else. And when I'm like,
Mm.
oh, you're doing that? I just fold it up, put it back in their envelope, put another envelope, and send it back. And they get that and call like, what are you doing? I go, yeah, you can't alter the contract. We signed a deal. If you're doing that now, I can only imagine what's going to happen when we get started.
Right.
You can take this $20,000 check and you can just find someone else to do the work. I'm out. Okay. That's a very liberating time. Okay.
Yeah, I can
You
see
can
that.
do
Yeah.
that stuff, right? But there's times when you have to understand that spirit. Okay. Like you have to understand, like it is going to get worse. Okay. This, person, I've had numerous experiences like that, lost a lot of money because I didn't listen to that. Right. So we learn this stuff as we go through. So again, it's that discernment we talked about in the very beginning.
Yep.
What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Are you really listening? Or are you just trying to get a client?
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be in there listening.
Well, I think with coaching, you'll see that because coaching's hard. Getting clients is difficult. Everyone's just not running to you and say, "Oh, Peter, coach me," and they're lining up and waiting outside your house to see if you'll, give them an hour. It doesn't work like that, right? Like it's legit work. Like you got to market, you got to talk to people, you got to try to bring them in. There has to be that trust, that confidentiality, and everything else. They're just not going to come and sign up with you. But a lot of these people are doing anything they can to get a client, whatever it takes. So
Yeah.
they lose a lot of their integrity and things like that just to bring someone in. So it's a word of caution, right? But we don't
Yep.
operate that way. You can't,
Yep.
because in the long run, that doesn't serve anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, my man. Well, Peter, you said you got a book. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah. So the book is called Authentic Self Rebirth. If you look, this is, I think, the first book. This is what it looks like, by the way.
Love
I
it.
think this is the first book ever that you can put your name on the top cover. Like there's a line specifically for your name. So it'll be Richard's Authentic Self Rebirth, Peter's Authentic Self Rebirth.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
basically, I wrote that book back to myself after the divorce, right? The person that kept asking that question, what the hell is wrong with me? and try to figure out, how life is. And I think a lot of times I noticed over the last few years, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, some of them feeling lost, some of them feeling like there's something missing. And, a lot of things have changed, and especially now with AI, the things that are happening, and business owners are kind of like, what is going on? You know what I mean? They're trying to figure out how to pivot the business or whatever it might be, right? So I wrote this book to people to help them get back to their authenticity, because I think when you get back to that, the way I look at it, the way God created you to be, because I think, they're the perfect in his image. And then we screw things up in a way. But like a lot of times, the world tells us how we need to be in order to perform. It's a performance kind of a identity as opposed to authenticity identity, being in your like spirit, like you said, being in peace. Then all of a sudden things shift. Nothing can really shake you what's going on out there. You start making better decisions. You start acting in a way that is going to help you. So I wrote this book there's a lot of exercises in there. There is QR codes. It's like a 4D manual, basically transformational manual. Read a chapter. There's a QR code. You can take a picture of it. Takes you to a website. You can watch a video that's kind of get you. It's like an immersive experience. There's questions, there's exercises. So my whole goal with this book to maybe literally help people transform, get back to their authenticity. If I can do that with 10,000 entrepreneurs, that will be amazing. So because they have so much power in the world, because they shift communities, they shift, families, their own lives, and makes a huge difference.
No, that's awesome, man. I love the interactive aspect of the book and stuff too. We have the technology now.
Yep.
To do some really cool stuff with our writings and everything else, and giving these people the ability QR codes and pop to this and pop to that and every other thing you could do. I love it. I love you've capitalized on that. That's a differentiator, man. It's really cool. And I think it's when you talk about getting back to authenticity. I was having a discussion today. I do a lot of stuff on AI and everything too, but I said I think the pendulum has swung really far to one side on the automation, and it's coming back now. And people are realizing they need relationship.
Oh yeah.
They need to be with people. Like this whole, COVID kind of launched us into the whole Zoom screen thing and all this stuff and everything in a big way, in a hurry. But people are like, I kind of miss people.
Yeah. Connection drives people. We need to be connected.
And that's where the real work gets done.
Yeah.
That's where the connections, that's where the trust aspect comes back, right? We have to know that too many people were beginning to embrace isolation.
Yeah.
And it's not good. God did not make us to be alone, right?
That's
it's
right.
Two or more is gathered, baby. We gotta get with people. We gotta understand that. And in your book, as far as an authenticity standpoint, that's what gives you the confidence to do that.
Right.
If you don't know who you are, I could go, and I don't care who I go with. Everybody to me, Peter, eye to eye. Right. Multi-billionaire clients, eye to eye. Okay, like it doesn't. Everyone's the same to me.
Right, we're human beings.
I have respect. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but I can have a conversation like you and I have a conversation, and anybody else. It doesn't matter, because I know who I am.
Right.
And that's where it comes from. If you don't know yourself, okay, all you're trying to do is be a chameleon all the time. Be what they want you to be.
Yeah.
And that's a miserable way to live.
Yeah. Because you're trying to please everybody and everything, you know what I mean? And you have to be different for a different person because you're dealing with different stories with different people. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good. I love the book. How do people get the book?
Well, I actually, right now with the whole 10,000, leader movement that I'm creating, I'm giving the book away for free. Actually, the way it's worked, I created this pay it forward program. So what that means is someone who went to the website and picked up the book. They paid for your shipping and handling, which is about $9.95, and I'm paying for the printing of the book. So you go to our website, go to myauthenticrebirth.com. That's myauthenticrebirth.com, and you just pay it forward to another entrepreneur, another leader. That $9.95, your book is picked up for you. You just put in your shipping and information in there, and it's going to be sent to you within a week here in the United States. And I'm just hoping to impact a lot of people. So myauthenticrebirth.com, they can go and check out the book and get that for themselves.
That is awesome. That's a great move. That's a great move, man. I'm glad you're doing that. That is what people need. I think what people need, and like what I love about your book too, is like reading's great, and people read a book, and they put it back on the shelf, and they don't do a thing about it. There's no
Right.
application. Yours start to be interactive, start to see it. You got to exercise and stuff like that. That's where the power comes from, and that's what's worth giving away.
Right.
If you think
Exactly.
about it, it's like there you're actually going to get more. You're going to put more fruit is going to be produced from that than if you had the, you know, talking like mine. Well, it's stuff, right? I mean, there's a difference, but I think you've got a mission behind your
I'm on
book,
a mission. Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
and I love it. I think that's fantastic. So I encourage my listeners always, whenever you get, especially offers like this, you know, a $10 phenomenal book with everything he's got into it, so you can pay it forward. All that it's already been paid for you, and just kind of get into that. That is awesome. But take advantage of it. Go to the
Well,
site,
thank you.
get it, take advantage of it, and do it, because otherwise you're just like killing time. Okay, and you're not advancing, and we have to
Exactly.
advance constantly. We're not interested in holding our position. We must advance constantly. That's the nature of business, and it should be our life as well. So, Peter, this has been fantastic. I appreciate all the time you've given us today. It's been absolutely awesome. Again, people take advantage of this offer, and for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.